Have you ever had the feeling that something was fundamentally wrong with the way you were educated? That nagging sense that, despite all the grades and gold stars, you were being shaped into something that wasn't truly you? Don't answer just yet. Let that uneasy feeling settle in the pit of your stomach, the place where you hide doubts you were told never to voice. Think back to one of those early mornings in the classroom. You remember the fluorescent lights humming above? The clock on the wall ticking away, the rows of desks all facing forward. You sat there with questions dancing in your mind, but you quickly learned which questions were safe to ask. Every time you pushed against the invisible boundary, you were gently, or not so gently, pushed back in line. They taught you to raise your hand to speak, to ask permission for the most basic human needs. Sit still. Stay quiet. Follow the rules. At first, you might have wondered why everything felt so strict and cold. But you soon stopped asking. You told yourself, this is just how it is, this is normal. After all, every other child was doing the same. Do you remember the first time you felt the spark of curiosity dimming? You might have entered school bursting with creativity and questions. Why is the sky blue? How do birds fly? Who decides what's true? But over time, that spark flickered. You learned that it was safer to stick to the textbook answers. It was wiser to nod along than to ask the questions burning inside. Over the years, you became an expert at playing the game. Give the answers they want. Get the grades you need. You were praised for being good, for being quiet and diligent. The wild imagination and bold ideas you had as a child were carefully packed away. In their place grew a carefully managed version of you, one that fit the mold perfectly. But here's the thing that gnaws at you now. None of this felt like a choice, did it? You didn't consciously decide to silence your questions or clip your own wings. It happened to you slowly, as if guided by an unseen hand. What if that gentle molding of your mind was never about helping you grow, but about making you fit into a predefined shape? What if your education was never really about your enlightenment at all? What if it was about control? Think about it. The structure, the discipline, the rewards and punishments. It starts to feel less like nurturing a mind and more like training a pet. This realization might feel like a betrayal, a punch to the gut. And it should. They lied to you, though not in words spoken outright, but in the silence between them. They promised you that schooling was the path to success, to a good life. Work hard, follow the rules, and you'd be rewarded. But those promises were a mask, a beautiful mask hiding an ugly truth. The system wasn't built to set you free. It was built to keep you in line. Your parents trusted this system, and so did you. How could you not? It wore the face of authority and spoke with the voice of tradition. Generation after generation marched into the same classrooms, believing it was for their own good. You never suspected that behind the kindly face of education lurked something predatory, a design to mold your thinking and tame your spirit. The truth is that this system was engineered. It didn't just happen by chance or evolve naturally out of goodwill. It was crafted carefully and deliberately by people you never met. People who had plans for you before you were even born. Plans not to nurture your unique genius, but to tame it, to shape you into what they needed you to be. One of those masterminds was a man whose name you've heard, but whose intent you never suspected. John D. Rockefeller. A titan of industry. Rockefeller was one of the richest and most powerful men in American history. To the public, He was a philanthropist building libraries, universities, and foundations. But behind closed doors, he had a very clear vision for society and for your mind. Rockefeller once famously said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers." Let that sink in. The man funding and shaping the early American education system didn't want you to think. He wanted you to toil. In his eyes, the ideal school graduate wasn't a visionary or a poet or an inventor. It was an obedient worker, primed for the factory and the office, trained to never question their place. Step back and picture the world in Rockefeller's time. The dawn of the 20th century, factories booming, machines clanging, the air thick with coal smoke. New industries were rising, and with them a need for a new kind of worker. The tycoons of that age looked out at a nation of independent-minded individuals and saw a problem. They didn't need independent minds. They needed loyal employees, people just smart enough to run the machines, but not brave enough to question the system. Before this era, education wasn't always a rigid institution. In early America, many children learned at home or in small community schools. Literacy was high, even without standardized schooling. People taught themselves from the Bible, from classics, from any books they could find. This was a nation of self-learners and independent thinkers. And to the new industrial barons, that was a terrifying prospect. They took inspiration from a system born far from American freedom. In Prussia, a rigid model of state-controlled schooling had been used to produce obedient soldiers and clerks. People conditioned to follow orders without question. American reformers, and the industrialists behind them, imported that model eagerly. In 1852, Massachusetts passed the first law forcing children into school. What started as a local experiment would soon spread nationwide, a standardized one-size-fits-all education for a one-size-fits-all kind of citizen. Fast forward to the early 1900s. Rockefeller and his peers seized on this framework and made it their own. He poured unimaginable wealth into education through foundations and boards that quietly dictated what schools should teach. In 1902, Rockefeller established the General Education Board with the explicit mission to direct the course of American schooling. This wasn't just charity, it was social engineering on a grand scale. Rockefeller's right-hand man, Frederick T. Gates, described their dream for education in chilling detail. "In our dream," he wrote, "the people yield themselves with perfect facility to our molding hand. Children would be shaped like clay in the hands of these self-appointed sculptors of society." Gates went on to say, "We shall not try to make these people or any of their children into philosophers or men of learning." They weren't interested in cultivating brilliant minds or independent thinkers. They wanted a population smart enough to do the work, but docile enough to never challenge the order of things. Rockefeller wasn't alone in this mission. Other titans of industry like Andrew Carnegie joined in, funding the spread of this new education system. They called it philanthropy. But it was a clever investment. If they could churn out generations of disciplined workers, their factories and businesses would never run short of compliant labor. The rulers of the new industrial order had found the perfect way to manufacture loyal subjects. Start when they're young and call it schooling. This was the blueprint for the very schools you grew up in. Think about that. The classrooms of your childhood were born from the minds of men who saw children as cogs for their machines. Every rule, every lesson plan, every report card, they all trace back to that cold vision of human domestication. You weren't educated. You were engineered in the exact way Rockefeller and his circle intended. The signs were there all along. The morning bell that jerked you into line was no accident. It was the factory whistle, training you to jump at the sound. The tidy rows of desks, the standardized tests, the authority of the teacher at the blackboard, all deliberately mirrored an assembly line. You weren't meant to explore or wander freely in thought. You were meant to march from station to station, task to task. Just as you would later march from punch clock to paycheck, there was always an authority watching, wasn't there? A teacher, a principal, a hall monitor, eyes always on you to make sure you conformed. If you spoke out of turn or deviated from the lesson, you were corrected, maybe even punished. You learned quickly that stepping outside the lines wasn't worth the cost, so you policed yourself. You became your own overseer, making sure your thoughts and actions stayed within the approved limits. It's an ingenious system when you think about it. A form of mind control that doesn't need barbed wire or prison guards, because it gets you to build the walls yourself. George Orwell imagined a world of thought police and Big Brother watching your every move. But here, they didn't even need a telescreen in the classroom. The constant pressure to fit in, to avoid the sting of disapproval, was enough. You learned to suppress your dissenting thoughts long before they could ever escape your lips. What happened to the kids who couldn't or wouldn't conform? Think about the troublemakers, the ones who spoke up or refused to sit still. The system had a way of breaking them too. They were punished, ridiculed, or slapped with labels: lazy, disruptive, problem child. Maybe you were one of them. Or maybe you just watched it happen. Either way, the message was clear: conform or suffer. And what of the good students, the ones who aced every test and collected every accolade? They were held up as examples, proof that the system works. But in reality, they were its most finely crafted products. They learned how to think inside the box so well that they never realized there was a box at all. The system didn't fear the straight-A student. It was proud of them because they had internalized the chains without ever seeing them. It hardly mattered whether you rebelled or complied. The system had a script for both. If you obeyed, it hugged you close in a velvet glove, assuring you that you were doing well. If you resisted, it met you with an iron fist until you bent or broke. By adulthood, nearly everyone has been forced into the mold one way or another. You either wear the smile of compliance or the scars of defiance. And either way, the system leaves its mark on your mind. Look around at the education system today, and you'll see shiny new technology, interactive whiteboards, tablets on every desk. They tell you it's the future of learning. But scratch the surface, and it's the same old machine with a fresh coat of paint. Children are still herded from class to class by the sound of a bell. They still memorize facts and regurgitate them for tests. They still learn early on that obeying the rules is the real exam they must pass. Think about it. Almost every child bursts with imagination and creativity in their early years. Ask a classroom of first graders how many can draw or sing or dream up fantastic stories, and every hand shoots up. But ask a room of high schoolers the same question, and most eyes will stare at the floor. School is supposed to make kids smarter, but what if each passing year is actually dulling that spark of genius? It's as if every year in the classroom, a small piece of your imagination quietly dies. By the time you left school, how much of you was really left? Those teenage years, when you should have been exploring the full expanse of your mind. You were instead cramming for exams, memorizing answers, staying up late stressing over grades. You were told that this was what success looked like. Don't color outside the lines. Don't question the curriculum. Just do as you're told and collect your reward. A piece of paper telling the world you were educated. But what did you lose in the process? You might have lost more than you realize. Maybe you lost the confidence to trust your own judgment, always looking to an authority for the right answer. Maybe you lost the ability to daydream without guilt, to learn for the pure joy of learning. The system made you believe that your worth was defined by a letter grade or a test score. It trained you to measure yourself not by your curiosity or your kindness or your creativity, but by how well you could fit into a rubric. The cruelest irony is that education, true education, is meant to ignite minds, not extinguish them. It should have been the key to unlock your potential. Instead, it became the lock on your potential's door. You entered school as a bright flame, and many of us leave as ashes of our former selves, our brilliance smothered under years of compliance and routine. They told you it was empowerment, but it felt like anything but. Now you sit with this truth, and perhaps it makes you angry. It should. It's okay to feel that rage welling up. The sense of betrayal that the people and institutions you trusted stole something from you. They stole time. They stole possibilities. They stole a piece of your mind. Let that anger burn for a moment, because it has a purpose. It's lighting a beacon, showing you just how badly you want to reclaim what was taken. Along with the anger, there might be a heaviness in your chest, sadness for the years lost, for the innocence taken. It's as if you've awakened from a long sleep, only to realize how much time slipped away in someone else's dream. Grieve that if you need to. It's important. But don't linger too long in grief, because there's something else waiting on the other side of it. What's waiting for you is the taste of freedom. Perhaps the first true intellectual freedom you've ever known. Because now, you see the cage for what it is. The bars are visible. The illusion is shattered. And when a cage is exposed, escape becomes possible. The power that shaped you without your consent is real. But now, finally, you can confront it with open eyes. You have a choice now. Perhaps for the first time, a real choice. You can pretend you never saw the bars and return to the comfort of the routine. Or you can step into the unknown and reclaim your mind. No more being the product of someone else's design. No more living in a mental world someone built for you. This time, you design your own mind's destiny. It won't be easy. Stepping off the well-worn path never is. When you start to think for yourself, truly think, it might feel like walking into a wilderness with no map. You might stumble, you might doubt yourself. After all, you were trained to doubt yourself. But step by step, you'll learn to trust your own mind again. You'll reclaim the curiosity and creativity that were your birthright. Others might not understand what you're doing. They might call you foolish for questioning the only system they've ever known. They might even resent you for it, because your courage to step out of line reminds them of their own chains. But pay no mind to the naysayers. This journey isn't about them. It's about you, reclaiming what was always yours. Your right to think, to question, to know the world on your own terms. So what does it mean to reclaim your mind? It means learning because you want to, not because you have to. It means questioning everything you were taught to simply accept. Go find the knowledge they left out of the curriculum. Read the books they never mentioned in school. Ask why and how. Like the curious child you once were, unafraid of where the questions lead. This time, let your mind roam free, in a world that still quietly asks for obedience. Thinking for yourself is a revolutionary act. Every question you ask, every independent thought you nurture, is a blow against the prison walls built around you. You won't get a certificate for shattering the illusion. No medal or honor roll for breaking the mold. The rewards are deeper. You get yourself back. You reclaim your own mind from the clutches of those who sought to own it. Think about that for a moment. Your mind, the very core of you, belongs to no one but you. It sounds obvious, but ask yourself, how often did you feel that way growing up? How often did you think thoughts that were truly yours, not planted by someone else? Reclaiming your mind means finally experiencing that freedom, the sovereignty of your own consciousness. No billionaire, no bureaucrat, no textbook can take that away once you claim it. And when you reclaim your mind, you do more than just save yourself. You become a light for others still lost in the darkness. The system relies on everyone playing along, on each generation sending the next into its clutches, without question. But if you break the cycle, if you refuse to hand your own children over to the machine, the whole illusion weakens. One liberated mind becomes 2, then 10, then 1,000. Change starts to grow. Imagine a future where education truly means what it should, drawing out the potential and individuality of every child, rather than hammering them into uniform shape. It's possible. But it starts with each person seeing the truth of what was done to them and choosing a different path. It starts with you, right now, daring to think differently, daring to claim your life and your mind as your own. The mask has been torn off the face of education. You see it now for what it really was, and that knowledge is power. No, more than that, it's liberation. When you can call a thing by its true name, you rob it of its grip on you. Indoctrination disguised as education can't fool you anymore. And a mind that cannot be fooled is a mind that cannot be fettered. So here you stand at the threshold of a new chapter. The school bells have faded, the textbooks are shut. The voices that once told you who to be are dying echoes. Now it's just you, standing in front of an open gate, looking out at a world that you can finally learn on your own terms. What will you do? Will you step forward and claim that freedom waiting for you? You've been taught to doubt yourself every step of the way. But now's the time to believe in your own capacity to grow beyond what you were told to be. Step forward. Walk through that gate. You owe it to the child you once were, the child whose eyes shone with wonder before the world tried to snuff it out. You owe it to yourself now, and to the future self you have yet to meet. Every step you take on this path is an act of reclaiming what was always yours. No longer will you be a pawn in someone else's game. No longer will your mind be farmed like a resource by those in power. You are reclaiming the sovereignty of your thoughts, the ownership of your soul's direction. This is not some dramatic movie plot. It's the real story of you, casting off invisible chains that have bound you since childhood. And with each chain you break, you feel more alive, more awake than ever before. Remember this moment. Remember how it feels to see the truth laid bare. The pain, the anger, the hope stirring beneath it all. Hold on to it. This is the feeling of waking up. It's the feeling of chains falling away. It's the beginning of your journey to reclaim what was always yours. Don't let anyone lull you back to sleep. Don't let the comforts of ignorance seduce you. Stay awake. Stay hungry for truth. Now is the time to reclaim your mind and your autonomy. Not tomorrow, not someday. Right now. Take back the reins of your own consciousness from the hands of those who stole it. Question the narratives that were fed to you. Seek your own truths. Assert your right to think, to feel, to decide who you will be. This is your birthright. Seize it. The gate is open. The chains lie broken at your feet. Feel the air of freedom on your skin, the thrill of possibility coursing through your veins. They tried to break you, to tame you, to train you to accept a cage as your home. But you were born to be free. Step through. Walk away from the prison of the mind they built for you, and don't look back. This journey you're on is deeply personal. No one else can walk it for you. But know this, you are not truly alone. Every person who has dared to question, to challenge the system, stands with you in spirit. The great minds of the past who refused to be caged, they guide you. The child within you who never gave up hope, they cheer you on. You carry all of that with you as you step into your own light. It's your life to live, your mind to rule. They had their turn with it. Now it's your turn. So take a deep breath and step into the sun. Wake up. Open your eyes. Reclaim your mind. Reclaim your autonomy. It's yours. It's always been yours.